Welcome back to How China Works. I'm your co-host, Brendan Davis.
And I'm Ying Li.
And we are here on a lovely Beijing afternoon.
Yeah, finally. So beautiful today.
It is, right now, it's the end of the national holiday.
Right.
As we record this. Have you had a nice holiday, Ying Ying?
Of course.
You have, and you've been busy.
Yeah, I went to Sichuan, enjoyed the spicy food, and climbed a little bit of mountain.
Nice, nice. Well, I had Sichuan food here in Beijing. I would like to go back to Sichuan and have it myself. But speaking of world travel, see what I did there, tying it around. We're going to have a very special guest here in just a moment. And our guest is Simon Young. He's from New Zealand.
Wow.
And you've heard me talk about New Zealand a few times, right? What's really funny is, as Ying and I were chatting the other day to prepare for this interview with Simon, I had earlier had three, not one, not two, but three different outreaches from different friends of mine, because New Zealand's kind of the third leg in my stool.
Really?
You know? Yeah. I mean, I've got China, I've got LA, and then New Zealand is sort of my destination down the road. And so I have all these different friends there. I've been there a good bit. And three different people who I don't talk to every day all reached out to me about different things. And then Ying pings me going, okay, so about this Simon Young interview. I'm like, really? I can't get away from New Zealand.
Okay.
But his ears must be burning because Simon's on the line. Hey, Simon.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Going well.
Awesome. Wonderful to have you here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to be part of so much yuan fan that's happening.
Yuan exactly. Exactly.
Now, Simon, you have a Chinese name that I would mangle, so why don't you do the justice for us and share that?
Sure. So in the Chinese world, people call me Yang Jin Hong, which has a really a very intimidating meaning. It's an aspirational name. It's all about how much I can help people and add value to them. It's a really good yardstick to measure myself against every day. Yeah.
No pressure, huh? I have a Chinese name. I won't try to say it because if you pronounce it wrong, it's very rude.
Oh, you never tell me.
You know, yeah. I'll off air. People read it and they go, "Oh, that's a beautiful Chinese name. It's so evocative." My old Chinese partner gave it to me. But if you say one of the words incorrectly, it becomes a word that we would have to beep out for China, basically.
Okay, later.
So,
okay,
later.
Off the record.
Later. This is how we do it. So, Simon, now that we've established the nature of this conversation, most of my Kiwi friends, even if they're very serious in their business, they tend to have a good sense of humor, and you do too as well.
Yes.
But let's talk about
humor.
Absolutely, as well you should be, sir. So, give us the short introduction beyond what we've kind of said that you're a Kiwi. Give us a short introduction about who you are and your China, background and what it is you do, and then we're going to get into all the details.
Sure. So right now I'm part of a company that I co-founded with Glenn McLean, and the company's called Red Circle Network. It is a business process optimization company for Western businesses coming into the China market, whereas a lot of other companies focus on just one aspect, like marketing, especially marketing tends to be the case. We're looking at the whole process and looking at how to build capabilities in organizations. So I've been in the China space myself since 2010, after probably a few years before that reading about China, but China came to me in 2010, and I've been kind of trying to catch up ever since. China is something that the more you learn about, the more you know you don't know.
For sure.
And so that's definitely part of my journey as well. Having said that, on the way, I've come from a background in social media. So social media was a big part of my learning journey into China. And it's also a big part of what we help our clients to do. So I'm burning through my fourth Wechat personal account because you have to start a new one once you've got 5,000 people. So I just keep connecting with people, and I've just in this year I've been on Douyin, the popular short video app, and just heading towards 25,000 viewers on there.
Fantastic.
So you're a Chinese KOL here.
That's the idea.
Yeah, so it's a big topic to talk about how social media works here in China, and it's part of how China works as well, as you can imagine. So where did all this started? Where did this all start? Like, what was the first engagement or encounter when you first engaged with Chinese social media, and how was it?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, in 2010, a company came to me asking me to do the workshop that we were doing in New Zealand, Australia, about Western social media. And this company said, can you do that in Shanghai? And this was not long after the Great Firewall was introduced. So after saying yes, I then started doing
Great
doing the
timing.
homework and go, oh, no Facebook, no YouTube, no
Right.
Twitter. Right then, at the time, was Weibo. Weibo was the big thing, and so I got a Chinese teacher, started learning the language, and the teacher was in a job that had just started, and after 3 lessons, she got too busy. But she said, "I'll tell you what, I'll set you up on Weibo," and so that was like kind of opening Pandora's box for me, because I was living at the time in central Auckland, which is a very multicultural place.
Sure.
You walk down the street and it looks like an Asian city.
Right.
But it's not socially acceptable to just go up to an Asian-looking stranger and go, "Ni hao, can you speak
Right.
Chinese with me?" It's a little weird, right? So,
Yeah, Kia ora, mate. You might hear, yeah.
Exactly. But on social media, that's completely acceptable, especially back in 2010, when it was still that fresh new feeling of social media. It didn't become so contentious and creepy as it tends to be now. So there was this, I was this Kiwi guy, this Western guy, this native English speaker. And I think my first bio said something like, "I am a very friendly native English speaker. Would you like to be my friend?" Which is kind of like saying, "I have gold. Would you like gold?"
Yeah, nice.
Interesting.
Everybody likes gold.
So,
using language exchanging as one of the ways to build that kind of bridge or entrance, right? To start to do this cross-cultural communication. Well, interesting.
So did people just bombard you from that point?
Pretty much. It's a gateway drug. Weibo was my gateway drug. I quickly got into QQ, and back then we had Renren, which was the Facebook of China.
Right.
And then the next year we had this little app called Wechat startup.
So you were one of the early users, right?
I was right there in the first, I don't know about the first month, but at least the first year of WeChat.
I had WeChat in 2012.
Right in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I had it in LA in 2012 when it first came out in English.
Well, we should do a whole session about this, interviewing, the people using WeChat in different stages.
the early adopters, and the thing with WeChat is it's even today it looks so simple to the kind of untrained eye, but it's so sophisticated behind the scenes, and that's partly what we now bring into WeChat for Business, because we're taking business people and we're equipping them with the tool that everyone's already using in China. So they may have downloaded it, but they just haven't discovered, all the things that it took, Brandon and myself, almost 10 years to discover, including the sort of the pathway up the technology kind of ladder or digital pathway, which goes to WeChat official accounts and being registered as a foreign company where you can receive Chinese payment into your local bank account, all of that kind of stuff. That starts to get people interested. But it actually starts with the free personal account and building relationships. That's a huge part of what we emphasize is that if you're going into China, you're going to need to build relationships, and WeChat is the power tool to do that from a distance. Sometimes, if you need to. Yeah.
Totally.
I already have tons of questions on this because I'm very curious. I got asked many, many, many times on this WeChat
Yeah, we
thing.
had the whole banking conversation yesterday. How do I help a friend who's trying to do this?
Okay, off the record. Okay, just kidding. So interestingly, tell us when exactly did you realize the importance of getting this serious to your audience, your particular consumers who actually might be interested in WeChat marketing, and so that you can provide service to them, and how did that change? How did that trend change, if there's any?
Oh, that's a very good question. It sort of happened in stages. So right from the outset, because I was doing a training workshop in Shanghai, I had to know at least an overview of everything back then in 2010. So I had to know, what was the latest, greatest kind of things then. It took a lot of time, as obviously a non-native Chinese speaker, to learn the ropes of some of these platforms. And so it did take a while until we were able to really productize WeChat for Business. WeChat's probably the easiest one because it has a fully English language interface. But we also help clients with things like Sina Weibo, the known as the Twitter of China, even though it's actually got more users and more features than Twitter. There's been other platforms that we also help people with as well. But probably in terms of milestones for us, WeChat's been a really significant one. And we've just really been doing these training workshops, WeChat for Business, this year.
What is the most difficult or most challenging for WeChat to be recognized as a tool to do business in China among, overseas audience that from your experience?
I think it's people getting the steps on the pathway in the right order. And we ourselves used to just sell people into the WeChat official account. And that's generally the way marketing companies work, is they just do the work for the client. And there's kind of this is too complicated for you. Just sit back. We will do basically whatever. And there's a lot of communication problems between head office and their agency or even their China branch, because the people at head office who are setting strategy, they don't actually use the tool. It's like, and this happens as well, it's like a senior executive who doesn't personally have a Facebook account trying to understand Facebook ads. And we saw that when Mark Zuckerberg was taken before Senate, and people who obviously don't use Facebook were saying, so do people get emailed ads on WhatsApp? And like, I don't know how to answer that because it's ridiculous. Yeah. So it took us a while to realize that, okay, the WeChat personal account is actually the missing link, because it helps people who are decision makers for business actually build empathy. And empathy is a word that we're always using because it's just so important. From a technology point of view too, like if you're designing an experience, you've got to walk through that experience to then know, if I don't do this step, people are going to fall off, and we're going to wonder why we haven't got any sales or any engagement. So trying to inculcate that into people, and then also try to empower them. WeChat is amazing when you've got, say, a trade show or an event, and you meet somebody, and this is a typical scenario that we have. If you're only in the business card world, you've got that person's business card, you've got their phone number, you've got their email, which they probably won't use their email that much. But unless you add WeChat, you don't have that kind of living connection. It just becomes a piece of cardboard on your desk.
I'm looking at stacks of them right now. I have a glass tabletop underneath the mic here, and I'm literally looking at stacks of business cards. I'm like, okay, some of those are in my phone. Most of them are collecting dust here. And when I get on a plane to Los Angeles in a week or to San Francisco, they're still here. But people I'm connected with WeChat on, are people I'm still chatting with or theoretically could reach out. What I'm curious to let's see if we can get a little freebie from you. Kind of walk us through. Let me give you a hypothetical. Let me paint a picture. Okay. Now use your imagination. This is going to be a stretch.
Yeah.
Pretend that Ying and I host a podcast that we're trying to build an audience for on social media, and that we were your client and we're paying you all the money, right? Like all the money. What would you do at a high level? Of course, I know there's only so much we're going to get for free and accomplish on this short call. What would someone like us or someone else with a small business, something that's it's got a niche audience, but it's a potentially large niche audience, but it's fragmented. How would you go about working with someone like us to get us right and get us over in the world?
Wow, that's really, I'm having to use my imagination so much for that.
Sure, I know it's a stretch to think about how you would approach this, but I have confidence in you, though.
Yeah, thank you. The force is strong in this one. You guys are really interesting because your audience is actually on both sides of the divide.
It is almost exactly split. When we look at our distribution of the show and who's watching where, it's almost 50-50 east-west.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay, so in the Western world, you're looking at things like for free, you can be networking in groups on Facebook. LinkedIn is becoming really powerful. LinkedIn is heading to become like Facebook in that people are bringing more and more of their personality, their lifestyle into it, live streaming video, that sort of thing. Because you're doing media, you're doing a podcast. I sort of had the question beforehand because I got dressed up for this interview, whether it's video as well as audio.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. No. If you saw me, you'd realize why it's not video. I'm just kidding.
All good. All good.
I'm wearing my very rude my very rude T-shirt. I'm not dressed like a business guy.
All good. I remember how hot it gets in Beijing, so no worries.
Please continue, though. I don't want to interrupt the free advice here.
Sure. So LinkedIn is really taking off as quite a good platform. We're using it a lot. Because there's two of you, it's great. You can mutually reinforce each other. That's what Glenn and I have been doing. We're getting different people working with us. So we've got a guy in San Diego as well. So when we have something that's related to the US, Mark, our guy, is also there reinforcing and sharing our content. Twitter is interesting. Twitter tends to be like the Twitter sinosphere tends to be all about politics.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
As a business person, is something that I'm not that interested in taking part in.
Sure.
Yeah. So Twitter is it depends what you're trying to do. So in the East, in the China space, WeChat is obviously where it's at. WeChat groups, and WeChat groups depend on who you know and who wants to invite you. So Ying Ying already has an amazing group which has really high quality content. So that would be, I'd recommend you get in that group.
well, sure. I've seen you in there. Yes, exactly.
Yes, yeah. And I think you guys are already presenting yourselves really well in the type of content that you have for WeChat. So you've got a visual image that's sort of arresting. You've got a summary. You've got a link. You've got instructions because not all podcast apps will work the same in China.
Sure.
I can't remember if you're using QR codes as a sort of call to action.
We do have We have one that links to Apple Podcasts and one that links to the Android / anywhere, any platform player. Yeah.
Well, this is actually a quite interesting topic, especially when it comes to marketing. This is not actually WeChat promotion, but the overall speaking, I would say for both marketing in China or outside of China, it takes tremendous empathy that you just mentioned. It's really about getting out of yourself and getting back to yourself, that kind of exercise when we were really putting the efforts into making it work. And as we see right now, more and more like brands are interested in getting to China. Brandon just mentioned that maybe taking how China works as an example, we both cover our audience from East and West, but for a lot of brands who are probably small brands from the West, from outside of China, if they kind of really get interested in China.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are tools definitely, but there must be logic, there must be philosophy actually.
Yeah.
Which we already always cover in our show about cultural intelligence, which is a higher level of thinking, of mindset, getting to China. So, do you happen to have any stories or example or like a showcase when you are dealing with clients in the West? So how can you just help them not just get on WeChat using the tools and attracting users?
Yeah, what do you do once you're there? And
once you're there, absolutely. We compare it to climbing a mountain. And so a mountain obviously has the pinnacle, which is 1.4 billion customers. Results may vary.
And if they all give me $1, oh no, that's the old thinking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
that's a cliche for the audience that doesn't get it. That's the cliche. And then if they all just give me $1, I'm rich. Yeah, okay, not going to happen.
But there is, mass market. Even getting a niche right in China is the pinnacle. But every mountain, you don't just walk up to the pinnacle. And there's a process of getting acclimatized, getting equipped, getting ready.
Right.
And so we help people. So our version of Space Camp is, for some businesses, it is actually helping them target the local Chinese market. So we're kind of blessed in New Zealand that we have a lot of Chinese people. And until the beginning of this year, we had a very thriving Daigou economy, which is people who are selling. literally it means buying on behalf of friends back home who are asking for products. But some of these became industrial size really quickly.
Yeah.
People running warehouses out of the garage. That became much more tightly controlled at the beginning of 2019, and with a law change. So that sort of shook out the people who weren't serious, and the people who were serious, they stepped on up and became full-on import-export agents. But having said that, the people who were interested in buying and selling products from the country that they're in, like New Zealand, Australia, US, they're still interested. They're still active and entrepreneurial and want to be involved. And so we help coach businesses to work with their local Chinese audience and do focus groups, test out the messages. We have one of our clients is New Zealand's biggest childcare centre. And they're not interested in people in China. They're just interested in that local Chinese population. And we had to do some, quite a lot of focus group work to really make sure that the message was getting across the right way. It's this sort of balance between formal, informal, coming alongside to help you, being an expert to teach you, sort of thing. So that's one way of kind of doing the base camp is with your local Chinese market. Another way is by, bringing the technology tools on little by little. So when you're doing stuff in WeChat groups, for example, there's no kind of paid media cost for that, and you're able to start to get feedback. So we had a workshop for a luxury hotel on Saturday night, actually, and I did what I call the fire hose experiment, which is basically I create a group. And then I save the QR code for the group, and I just put it on Moments. And I've got really diverse contacts on my WeChat. I've got people who are, factory workers, and they'll never leave China their whole lives, maybe. And I've got business owners, investors, etc. So I just put this QR code out there and say, hey, I'm teaching my client how to use WeChat. Come and join the group. And then in real time, she's learning about stickers, a lot about stickers.
Right.
Really
I bet. Yeah. Nice.
Whole universe, right? She's
Exactly.
learning about Hongbao, and so we were able to see, what is that? What's that orange thing? Oh, that orange thing's actually a red envelope.
Yeah. You want that.
Totally, yeah. So it's kind of a full immersion without going to China, because people do tend to learn a lot when they just go to China. But this is what we call pre-immersion. It's doing that digitally without the cost of like getting on a plane and taking a week off work, where you can actually get some of the same. It is kind of a shock value, right? When you first get, if you're a Westerner, and this was me in 2010. I'd read about China, but I had not stepped into China, and so it was such a visceral shock. Like, man, everything's so big here, and gosh, this language is completely different, and there's nothing in common with my language, and that's a kind of how we've got to become aware that we know nothing before we can start to learn. That was that kind of moment for me. And so we can try to create that digitally for our clients.
Mm-hmm. So my follow-up question my follow-up question for that WeChat group, because my mind is still imagining that when people just join the WeChat groups, right? What kind of audience, like you talk about some of your potential clients join them, are they both Chinese and Westerners who have just joined WeChat, or they happen to be mixed, or just all about someone who have interest in learning about the WeChat marketing, just had registered WeChat? Like, what kind of audience in that group?
So most of our clients are Western people that don't speak Chinese. We had one client that was the boss was German, and her employee was actually Taiwanese. So he had no problem with language and everything. And he actually called me before we did the workshop, and he was kind of just making sure I was legit. And eventually he came to really trust me, because he had done formal marketing study, and he obviously could speak Chinese, but he was realizing, okay, there's a whole level of technical proficiency that's involved with WeChat. It's a combination of your technical proficiency, but it's also the way you communicate in that culture. It's like a subculture. And so Originally, I thought, okay, people who speak Chinese probably won't need this, but actually, I'm open because we can be helpful to people, and if they don't know, we can help them know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how about how to actually evaluate or measure the success of this kind of workshop or training or effort you've done, especially when it comes to the transaction, the actual transaction, for example, the sales, everything like that?
Yeah. Well, you get a very nice certificate. Certificates are very important.
Is this like a participation trophy in the West that we like to give out? You
Kinda,
showed up.
yeah.
You showed up.
Exactly.
Here's your trophy. Okay.
Well, we do actually. The workshop's very hands-on, so we do get them to know how to do things that are steps on the path towards purchase. For purchase, we have to set them up on a payment gateway. So we work with a couple of different providers in New Zealand that also do US and Australian markets. So that's kind of the end. It's a little bit like dating. Some people start the date going, so how many kids are we going to have?
Check, please.
Usually scares the other person right away. Yeah, exactly. Like I got to go. Sorry. And business can be like that as well. So we help them go. Okay, what is the sign of her touching her hair, which means she's into you? Kind of I guess taking the dating equivalent to the business equivalent. So what are the signs? What are the key milestones? Obviously, somebody connecting with you is a great start.
Sure.
Having the right information about them. So do you know where they are? Do you know what they do? Do you know how to use the functions of WeChat to keep that information? So that one thing I've noticed is that Chinese friends tend to use something else except for their face as their profile photo.
Drives me nuts sometimes because I can't find people.
Yeah.
Right.
And tend to have Chinese characters as their name, which makes sense because that's the name.
Sure. But if you meet that 100 people at the convention and then you don't quickly put in, now how do I say that in pinyin, or what's your, call me Joe, and if you don't do that right in the moment, it's kind of lost.
Exactly, and that's part of what we teach, because obviously with me, 5 WeChat accounts, somebody comes to me and goes, "Hey, Simon, do you remember me?"
Like,
not at all.
Yeah, not a little.
Now, I started really doing notation about 4 years ago, and so the clients I've had since then, I've done much more with, because I know what they do and who they are and that sort of thing. So that's kind of a measurable increase and measurable outcome. You can say, I went to this event and this is how many people I have tagged from that event, for example.
Nice. So what is the weirdest or the most strange question that you got from your clients about WeChat, about this? We like to challenge.
Interesting.
Besides, does it email me alerts or whatever that was that the sender asked Zuckerberg?
Yeah, so our clients don't ask so many weird questions. I actually get the weirdest questions from Chinese friends, but I also get so many of the same questions. So,
what are some of the highlights? So the highlight.
Oh my gosh! Well, 3 years ago, I started my WeChat official account, and I just basically, the content was easy. I was just answering people's questions. So the most frequent kind of question that I get. So I'm married, but I get people say, "Can you introduce me to a boyfriend from your country?"
Wow.
Which is, and I'm like, okay, it's a compliment, right? I'm very, very flattered that I'm being asked that, but at the same time,
and you tell your wife, "Honey, I can read this. What are you doing?" I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
That's a complimentary.
There's a supply demand problem. Yeah, it's like, okay, so there are like, I don't even have that many single friends, let alone friends who speak Chinese, let alone friends who are willing to go to China and become part of a Chinese family, which is really the deal that's on the table here.
That's right.
So that's
come on, my parents move in with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Business.
Other questions, how do I learn English? And I tell people, I was a baby at the time, I can't remember, sorry.
Right. No.
That's really mean. No, I don't say that.
No, it's funny though.
People do get mistaken as to where New Zealand is. Like it's next to Germany, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it just seems that way sometimes.
You see that are great opportunities. There are great opportunities for this kind of bridge. That's why we get you on. We never got a specific guest.
Yeah, we
from New Zealand,
we haven't
right?
had a Kiwi. I was going to ask you, unless I'm interrupting you with the mother of all. Did you have one more queued
No.
up? Okay, okay. I didn't
No, that's all
didn't want to miss the golden egg there. Again, because I've been fortunate to have friends and have done business and traveled down there a good bit, I know how people who are not from the West, there's the saying, of course, between like the U.S. and Britain, two countries divided by a common language, and
Absolutely.
and as we know, Kiwi English and what U.S. English can be very different in terms of terms of art and idiosyncrasies. So that probably is an extra challenge for someone, say, from a Chinese environment who has learned sort of textbook and often probably British English in a school environment, and then they're trying to deal with Kiwis. Right. And so that gets to the broader point about, we mentioned empathy and cultural intelligence. What are some of the biggest macro challenges you see people facing, and what are some of your big pieces of advice? Like, what are some of the things that you really key on to get people to be able to collaborate effectively across borders?
Okay, probably the biggest challenge that people face is summed up by my first Chinese teacher. She said to me, "Simon, stop speaking English." I was trying. It was like it seems so obvious, right? But I was trying to get Chinese sounds, and I spent just a ridiculous amount of time during the lessons looking at her mouth, going, "How?
Right?
How is that sound coming out?" Because I was trying to fit it into an English sort of setting, and I think that's what it's definitely what business people do. It's what I did in the early days. I want to equate something with something I already know. We want to go from the known to the unknown, and part of it is letting the unknown take you somewhere. Which is hard for business because we're all accountable to somebody. Even if we're the chairman of the board, we're still accountable for results.
Right.
And for Westerners, China tends to be the one market that's different from everything else. It's the biggest market. It's sometimes the hardest market, and it's so unpredictable.
Right.
So we try to build a lot of predictability into the processes by having kind of a step-by-step approach.
Okay.
But also that mindset change is really, really important to get people just ready to learn, ready to relax a little bit, and trust the Sherpa. Have a good Sherpa on the mountain, and knowing that sometimes wisdom can come from many different places. Really being ready to kind of reassess everything about what you do. Sometimes, you've got a market offering. This is true of business for any market, but especially China. You have an idea what it is that you're selling, and then you come into the market and people like something completely different about it. So you've got to adjust and adapt. So there is that. From the Chinese side coming into a place like New Zealand, I don't know. I just can't really speak
good luck
highly enough. It kind of, New Zealand's so small, and we've kind of taken that smallness to our thinking as well, unfortunately. I've
totally never noticed that. I mean that with love, Kiwi friends.
Really?
I mean it with love. Yeah. Related to the film industry, it's been a challenge. Yeah. There's a provincial is used as a 4-letter word, of course, in terms of some of the thinking, and I mean no insult, of course, but please continue. I definitely understand.
It's only true because it's true.
You know what I'm.
So that's hard for Chinese people who are global thinkers. Like New Zealand, as a destination, is amazing. We have a lot of luxury tourism clients. So if anyone wants to get a special package or special personalized deal, we can help you with that as well.
I hope they'll still let me in after this interview. Hope they'll let me come back.
Jacinda is listening.
I've never been to New Zealand.
He needs to go to New Zealand.
I'm your client.
Yeah, welcome.
Nice.
Absolutely.
We'll bring How China Works live down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we do have is a really strong and engaged local Chinese community. And even within that, you've got your subcultures. You've got the people who came from Hong Kong, people who came from Taiwan, people who came from the mainland, say, 20 years ago, who were totally different from those who are coming right now. Really different layers of culture and understanding and the way that language is used and all of that. Yeah, I think I can't say enough about how much I admire Chinese people generally, just this relentless desire for self-improvement, this sense that I'm one of a billion, so I'd better do a good job. That just always kind of inspires me. It makes me awestruck because I come from the opposite. I come from I'm one of 4.5 million. I'm an individual, and I do things my own
Right,
way, and I'm
right.
laid back and relaxed. And
Sure.
and so I love that I can choose to keep the individual part, but I can also choose to adopt from my Chinese friends that ridiculous, work ethic, that self-improvement ethic, that desire.
Right.
And I really wish that more Western people understood that. Often in the news media, people just see the negative, really quickly see the negative side of foreign investment, which is actually quite small amount of Chinese foreign investment in here compared to Americans or Australians, but
Yeah.
the visibly different people are targeted. There was a guy who I know in the tourism industry. He was talking about taking a client to a restaurant in Sichuan, and he described, that they were at the meal. They were trying to find the kind of thing that they like, and then the chef couldn't speak a word of English, but he invited them with hand signals and stuff. He said, "Come into the kitchen," pointed at different ingredients,
Oh,
and used
nice.
just purely used body language to
Yeah.
go, "What would you like? I'm going to make this," and that just brought tears to my eyes because I'm like.
And
Would
probably
that
there's
ever
when they ate the
happen in
food
New
because of
Zealand?
the spice.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, very spicy there in Sichuan. But I cannot imagine the same thing happening in New Zealand, sadly, or in Australia, or in the United States. We just have history is kind of, we think it's on our side because we've been the English speaking kind of people have been the people in charge for the last little while, but
Yay.
that's
Yeah.
really changing really quickly.
Wow.
I totally hadn't noticed. I
Hey.
had noticed, absolutely.
Yeah, patience, and respect are more than ever needed
Yes.
at this moment, I
Totally.
guess. Yeah, it's just,
Very much.
I get touched by the story. I can visually imagine that picture while this old chef maybe invited those clients who are curious about the Chinese ingredients go there, and even though they don't speak the language, there's so much barriers like a big wall, but through this body language, it's also nonverbal communication here. There's many
Yes.
ways. There are many ways for people to feel the moment when they're getting there. After all, we are all human beings. Not so much
Yes.
difference, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. This is why I really enjoy how China works because
Thank you.
I'm really on the same page with you guys. You really you make a lot of sense, and it's quite exciting. Obviously, a lot of the kind of this space is in China. It's expats in China who know they're kind of faced with China, and they're like, "Oh man, I have to get good at knowing about this." But also in New Zealand, it's a different kind of thing. It's getting people out of the familiar
Right.
and realizing that the world is changing around you, and the world is in some way it's a faraway place, but in super diverse cities like Auckland and Sydney and Los Angeles, it's like the world is right outside your door. You may just not have noticed.
Exactly.
which is your catchphrase, Brendan.
Yeah,
noticed.
pretty much. Yeah, that has become one, actually. You're right. Well, it's funny because especially, moving here, and I'm from Atlanta before LA, which was also very diverse for being, like the big city in the South. And so I've just been used to it. But of course, people who are from smaller places or even medium-sized cities haven't grown up with that sort of more diverse background. I mean, first time I came to Beijing, of course, there was huge culture shock. but in many other things we're also very familiar, just supersized because of
Yes.
scale. But and especially now, anyone who's from any major world city, I mean, they could come to Beijing or Shanghai or to Shenzhen or Guangzhou to different extents, and they could feel like, okay, well, they're gonna need some help with some language stuff, but in terms of the basic functions and operations of the place, these are major cities. And in terms of trying to help people overcome whether it's sort of a retrograde attitude, which is not really our challenge. I mean, those people aren't probably ones reaching out to engage in this market. But if someone is sincerely motivated to either whether it's do a business, do some sort of trade, or just on a human person to person level, to bridge these borders, do you have any special piece of advice that you could kind of sum it up? Any advice you give either to an Easterner or a Westerner to be able to maybe make that first step in being open and understanding the other culture?
Okay. First advice: hire a Red Circle Network.
Okay,
because
we're going to ask you for a
seriously,
website here in a minute, but
yeah. Seriously, sometimes it does take kind of somebody else to lift you out of that. But also, I think putting yourself either literally or like metaphorically in the shoes of your counterpart. So
Yeah.
for me, I lived in Shanghai for some time, and just that experience of being a dumb foreigner. I didn't know the local language that well. I had
Right.
enough to be dangerous, but man, so every single day I was coming up
Sure.
against my limits.
Sure.
And so I came back to Auckland. I already had a lot of compassion, but I had so much more for people who are brand new, doing things like driver's license or, where's the local library, or where do I buy such and such a thing? So literally doing it kind of it challenges you because you're actually physically there and you can't do anything else but learn. Metaphorically doing it is also quite good. So if somebody is aware that they've been kind of in a monocultural environment,
Right.
just reaching out to see, what community groups are there that they could join in, and or just get on WeChat, and results may vary. Even using the people nearby feature, which kind of has a bit of a dodgy reputation, is a bit of a hookup app. But
it used to be. I don't even know if people do that, but anymore. But
I actually ended up employing somebody that I met through people nearby. There was
No kidding.
somebody brand new to Auckland and with a lot of questions. So, disclaimer: results may vary.
Sure.
But it is a way of making kind of seemingly random connections, or a more safe path might be, approaching like if you're outside of China, like a new settlers association, and just seeing what help you can be.
Very nice. Well, Simon, this has been really fun and educational, and even but I have to have some tongue-in-cheek humor if I'm talking to a Kiwi, because there's part of what I love about New Zealand is the appreciation for even if you take your business seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And so,
Exactly.
I appreciate that, and that's what I miss. And like I'm hoping that they will still welcome me with open arms when I make the move. Is there anything, as we sort of wrap it up, is there anything that you wanted to get in there? We're going to ask you for contact info in a moment, but is there anything else that we sort of didn't get to you wanted to mention before we get to the contact info?
I think it's great for if people are looking for help with China, or they actually have some help to offer. We can do something with either of those people, and that's with our community on our website, redcirclenetwork.com. We're doing it's basically what I just described. So it's the people who need help and the people who have help, and connecting them together. So that's redcirclenetwork.com/community.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. And you both of you are most welcome to join up. We would love to have you there. Behind that kind of our own little great firewall, we have some really good content that we're just starting to build up about cultural intelligence, about empathy. We've got one of our tourism advisors, Sharon Stewart. She's an amazing designer of experiences. So we've got some advice from her on how to design experiences. So it's not purely about China. It's a lot of wisdom from the people that we've got in that crowd.
Again,
It's very early days.
You mentioned about wisdom. Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a wall, there is a bridge. I like what you said.
Yes, you can leave for the win.
That's really cool.
Yeah, Simon, thanks so much, man. We'll put all these links in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you on one or the other side of one of these walls.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Ying Ying. Really appreciate the opportunity.